John Adams, President 1797 to 1801. John Adams, our nation's second president, was the first vice president in history to be then elected as president. Adams had previously impacted the founding of the country. In advancing the cause of freedom, he helped to draft the Declaration of Independence. This would-be president was born October 30th, 1735 in a place now known as Quincy, Massachusetts. The actual birth took place in a saltbox-style home, which was typical of homes built by New England farmers during the colonial period. The cottage, one of two on the site, is the oldest presidential birthplace in the United States. It was frequently featured on postcards during the 20th century. Later, one of the two saltbox homes would also be the site of the birth of Adams's son, John Quincy Adams, who would also someday become president. In October of 1764, Adams married 19-year-old Abigail Smith. Later in his career, Abigail would sometimes be referred to as Mrs. President because of her seemingly major influence on the presidency. The feisty Mrs. Adams, history suggests, often chided her husband about the lack of opportunities for women. Her letters to President Adams, while they were apart, sometimes pointedly made reference to what would centuries later be known as women's issues. Early on, Adams worked well with Thomas Jefferson in their noble effort to mold the government of the young country. However, in the early days of the administration of President George Washington, they became at odds. Adams, as vice president, sought to move in one direction, while Jefferson, as Secretary of State, favored another direction. By the time Washington left office, Jefferson sternly wrote, "The president is fortunate to get off just as the bubble is bursting, leaving others to hold the bag." Washington had indeed declined to serve a third four-year term in 1796. Consequently, a group of strong central government Federalists supported Vice President Adams for the top job. Meanwhile, a group of anti-Federalist leaders and lawmakers known as Democrat Republicans supported Jefferson. In those days, presidential electors were selected in various ways depending upon which particular state was involved. That historic year, 16 states participated and Adams got 71 elector votes compared to 68 for Jefferson. Under the prevailing rules, Adams was elected president, and Jefferson, in second place, became vice president. Lots of other candidates got votes that year, including two for Washington, who was, of course, not a candidate. The situation was further complicated by the fact that Adams and Jefferson were technically from two different political parties. Today, such a configuration would not be possible. In 1797, it was perfectly permissible. Adams became president in March of 1797. He took office in Philadelphia, where the nation's government was then located. Ironically, by the time Adams actually did move into the president's house in Washington, D.C., he was practically being given an eviction notice by the electorate. Adams had sought a second term in 1800. However, the Republican Democrats this time were united and well organized. Federalist men were seriously divided and disorganized. As a result, Jefferson defeated Adams by a margin of 8 electoral votes. The loss was a bitter one for President Adams. He refused to attend the inauguration ceremonies of his winning rival Jefferson. After a stinging defeat, Adams retired to his farm in Massachusetts. He and his wife took up residence in a mansion then known as Old House. The home is now a National Historic Site. In their latter years, Adams and Jefferson rekindled their friendship through a prolonged correspondence. Jefferson would call the constant exchange of letters the affections of the most cordial moments of our lives. John Adams died on July 4, 1826. His last words were said to have been, "Jefferson survives." Oddly, he was in error, as Thomas Jefferson had himself died a few hours earlier. The day of Adams' death marked as the 50th anniversary of the Declaration of Independence. Adams was 91. Presidential site: Adams National Historic Site, Quincy, Massachusetts. John Adams, engraved print, copyright 1901, The Gravure Company of America. Birthplace of John Adams. Postcard based on drawing Mrs. Abigail Smith Adams. Postcard based on drawing President John Adams. President John Adams, Colonial Bread Premium Card. John Adams, Second President, Real Photo Postcard. Postcard based on oil painting by Morris Katz.